Hey guys, welcome back. Joe Brunsman, insurance broker to the stars. Today, a question I've been getting a lot recently, which is when should an MSP get insurance? So I thought I'd just make a video on that for the community. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. All right, now to begin with, remember there are a bunch of different types of insurance. I have a video that you'll see over here where I've actually made a video going through, hey, what are all these different types of insurance? What can they do? But I will say for the majority of MSPs out there, you're going to be looking at two different types, general liability and tech E&O. Those are the two I'm going to be going through specifically for the newer MSPs out there. All right. Now, what do those different policies actually do for you? Well, first off, you have general liability. There's kind of two basic types there. Number one is going to be something called a CGL. That's commercial general liability. That's third-party bodily injury and property damage. So that's bodily injury, property damage to somebody else's stuff or to some other person. Now, why would an MSP need something like that when, hey, maybe you're working in an office and it's a computer and everything's remote? Well, we often see that as a contractual requirement, so you may want to consider that. Next is a business owner's policy. Now, that is third-party and first-party bodily injury and property damage, right? That's the general laydown. There's a little more to it, obviously, but I'm giving you the 30,000-foot view there. All right. Now, why would you want a business owner's policy? Well, maybe you have a bunch of stuff sitting in your office, right? So a bunch of PCs or maybe some servers, and you're like, hey, you know, if there's a flooding or a fire or maybe some theft, maybe you're worried about that. All right, so then business owner's policy could come into play there. So that's third-party bodily injury, property damage. So that's some other person, somebody else's stuff. And first-party, so that's your stuff and then somebody on your property. All right, now keep in mind, those might be legal requirements. It varies by state and your particular legal structure. Some states have that requirement, some don't. So check your own state laws, talk to an attorney. All right, the other one, really the big dollar stuff, is going to be tech E&O. Now, what is that? That's E&O insurance and cyber insurance for your business. All right. So as a quick reminder, you should not have an E&O and a separate cyber policy. It doesn't work out that way. So I know a lot of people watching this, you may have a Hiscox E&O policy. Keep in mind, I'm not aware of Hiscox offering tech E&O to anybody. Generally, it's a miscellaneous E&O policy and then a really limited subset of things they're going to cover you for, and then you just cannot get cyber insurance on that. All right. So you need to start off with an appropriate tech E&O policy. Now, what is E&O insurance? That's damages for professional services rendered. So if a client comes after you and they say, hey, I don't think you properly advised me, or hey, you didn't have, if you see in my $1 million MSP lawsuit, which I'll link to above, hey, you didn't put 2FA on my backups. I didn't have immutable backups. I got hit with ransomware, so now I'm going to sue you for a bunch of money. That's where tech E&O insurance could come into play. Now, of course, the cyber insurance side, I have also a bunch of videos on that stuff, but think of that as 4 buckets. All right, so data breach, which would be a data breach for your business and your employees, / cyber events. So think business email compromise internally. Bucket 2 is ransomware. Bucket 3 is loss of money. So like social engineering scams would fit into there. And then bucket 4 is going to be miscellaneous but situationally important. So that could be everything from bricking coverage to subpoena assistance to dependent business interruption, dependent system failure. All right, so that's like the 30,000-foot view there. All right, now, what is ultimately the deciding factor on when you actually need to get this stuff? The big issue there is going to be something called a retroactive date. All right. Now, why is that important? This is when your insurance coverage begins, or more specifically, how far back they're going to cover the work you've done. All right. And that's if a claim were to arise. So you need to keep in mind that most of these policies, to use some insurance language here, they're retro inception. Now, what does that mean? That means it's only going to cover you for the work you've done from the day that policy goes into force moving forward. So anything you've done in the past is not going to be covered. That could really be an issue If you're an existing MSP, you need to solve that problem now. But for those brand new MSPs, you got to keep that into consideration, all right? You need to have a retroactive date that matches up when you have coverage. Now, you could run into some weird scenario where you've been providing MSP services for a while and then a claim arises and kind of in the middle you got insurance somewhere. Now you could have a problem with, say, like a partial declination of coverage, or they're partially declining coverage on you. I don't want to get too far into that because that's really fact pattern specific, but needless to say, you don't want to be in that position. All right. So when in doubt, just get your insurance. Now, obviously, this is kind of a chicken and egg thing. Now, I've already harped on it. Hey, if you're an existing MSP, man, just get that coverage in play. It's probably been on your to-do list. Just get it done. Bite the bullet, right? Easy enough. New MSPs, I'll say, hey, that general liability, the two types, so the CGLs and the BOPs, you can get that stuff in minutes online. All right. So if a contractual requirement pops up, hey, man, you can get that thing done. But tech E&O, that could take a week or two or more, depending upon what you got going on and actually depending upon the time of year. All right. So you don't want to wait till later in the year to get it done, because then everything starts stacking up. We have a lot more policies that renew during the very end of the year and the very beginning of the year. So this is really kind of that good time where it's like, hey, just get it done, knock it out, good to go. All right. But obviously this leads to kind of this chicken and egg scenario for new MSPs where it's like, hey, I started an MSP, but I don't have clients yet. You don't have a bunch of cash, and then you need to get insurance. All right. So generally what I tell people there is, obviously the insurance guy answer is you want insurance before you start providing services. Kind of the more specific answer for you guys is going to be, hey, if you come to me, you're like, I just started an MSP and you don't have any clients yet. Well, why pay for insurance if you don't have any clients? All right. So until you are really sure that you're going to have clients, you probably don't need insurance in place yet, at least as far as tech E&O goes. All right. Now, keep in mind that generally those quotes are good for like 30 days. All right. So let's say you got a couple irons in the fire there and you're like, hey, man, at least one of these is going to work out, right? It's, hey, get a quote, sit on it for 30 days, and then see what happens from there, right? Worst case scenario is you got the quote, you know roughly what it's going to cost. For most brand new MSPs, you're probably looking at $1 million policy, maybe $2,500-ish. There's a lot of variables that go into that, but that's kind of a good place to start. So, right, budget for that. Your general liability policy could be, I don't know, anywhere, once again, a lot of variables, but say $600 to $1,000 per year, something like that. So just kind of keep those variables in mind, right? That you don't need insurance until you start providing services, but the second you start providing services, you're going to want to have insurance in place. And so with that, hopefully that helped you guys out. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe. Right above me here is another video that the YouTube gods will recommend. And if you click over there on my beautiful face, you can subscribe to my channel. All right, guys, with that, stay safe.